Jupiter.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is November 19th,
19th.
2023, and it is the Sunday before Thanksgiving. We're delighted to have you with us. I know many people are traveling to be with family, so we're really glad you're here. And our topic today is the alchemy of gratitude, meaning the transformation that gratitude creates within us. And so let's start with an opening affirmative prayer. I know right here and now that we have so much for which to be grateful. And as we focus on what we're grateful for, it totally changes our consciousness and our vibration to one that attracts greater good. And we're able to see the good in the past and the future. For we know that when we have an attitude of gratitude, we are in a happy space. We are expecting greater and greater good and greater things to be experienced and loved. So we give thanks for knowing this, for experiencing it, and remembering it. We release, and together we say,
And so it is. I want to get us started today.
By the way, we always end our affirmative prayers with gratitude.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that keeps us going. Go ahead.
Did you have a quote you wanted to do before I?
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
I love in the Course in Miracles, for those of you that don't know what that is, in the Course in Miracles, they reduce, Judith is gone. There.
I took a drink of that
Yeah.
fancy water. And
That water makes her disappear. Yeah. So we're going to try to keep her on board for the entire session if we can. The Course in Miracles really defines emotions and refines it to the point of two particular emotions. One is love and one is fear. And, I thought that was a bit
and it says you're either in one or the other.
Exactly. And I thought initially it was simplistic, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. There's love, if we think of it in terms of gratitude, as soon as you start to think in terms of gratitude and what you're grateful for, what happens is you cannot help but feel the kindness. You cannot help but feel some of the warmth that comes with it. And you could say you either feel love or you're going in the direction of love, that love is present for you, or it's present to the extent that you can engage and connect with it. It's an emotion that's a very powerful emotion that, of course, when we have that, another thing happens, which is we feel safe. So when we feel safe and we feel loved and we feel cared about, we behave at a biochemical level and at every level very differently. And when the opposite is true, which is fear, which is when you wake up at 2 a.m. because you've been busy worrying yourself to awakening about the things of the day, if you take a look at the emotion that's going with that, it's fear. And so why I'm bringing this up today in particular is because my experience is we're not doing nothing. We're never doing nothing. We're always doing one or the other. That is, we're either positive and excited and heading in the direction of, or we may feel neutral, but we may, if we were to say, what's the emotion like, even in neutral, we would say, I feel good. I feel cared about. I feel safe. Or what's going to happen next? Is the traffic ever going to stop? Will that bill get paid? Will I continue to have my job? Will I lose my job? Will I get sick and die? Because people do that all the time, and I don't want to be one of them. But the bottom line is, and why this is so important, is you're never doing nothing. You're always doing one or the other. And so when the conversation you have is one of gratitude, when you start thinking in terms of gratitude, even when you release that thinking to go do something, that process can continue at a biochemical level, at a brain level, and it changes the immune system and it changes everything. We know that a large component of prayer is love. When you pray for other people, what you're saying is, I have something, I'm connected to something, I am enough, and I can share that and connect with you, and we're all one. Now, that's really a lot of love. And that's really, in order to be in love or in order to experience love, that has to be going on. And when it's not going on, then you're in fear. And so anger, I refer that as a secondhand emotion, because it's a feeling that is a response to not enough, being rejected, being eliminated, being annihilated. At some level, it could be psychological, it could be any number of things, but there's a threat that causes the system to say, oh my God, something bad is going to happen, or something bad is happening. Whenever we can change fear to love, whenever we can change not enough to enough, whenever we can change from that position that we normally are in, which is back and forth to gratitude, we've changed the whole structure.
Exactly. And what we believe is that we are always attracting circumstances,
Uh,
people, places, things, circumstances by our consciousness. Well, what is our consciousness? It's everything that we think, believe, vibrate. And so when we're thinking and believing positive, like we're grateful, thank you God for every day and every good, we are emitting a vibration that's very positive, and it attracts positive people, experiences to that. Whereas if you are, have you ever seen anybody that you would just rather not go over and talk to right now? They're doing a worried
or get
look,
away
or
from.
and it's just, I think I'll avoid that right now. And it's that thing, only it's the vibration, really. We would do read people's facial expressions and body language, but that's really not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the vibration that they're putting off. You will feel it. And so uh, what we have noticed, and in the past few years, really, I've used it more than ever, is that doing a practice of gratitude changes my state, my emotional state. And so I will go from fear to love, because when you're grateful, you are in love. And Bob and I've had some experiences lately. I don't know why, but at 4 a.m. seems to be a great time to wake up or be semi-awake with just exaggerated worry. And you take little things and they become mountains. And I found that the way I can best get out of it, because I can't talk myself out of it, is to start listing the things I'm grateful for. And that is a state change that gets me into love instead of fear. So it's a practice. For me, it has become a practice. And I suggest you try it as soon as last thing when you go to bed at night, what are you grateful for that day? And in the morning, maybe the second thing you do is to think about what you're grateful for then, because it's a wonderful way to start your day.
The yeah, where was
Where
oh
were you?
yeah, I knew I was. You're on a roll, and you're so good. I think I just gave up everything. Yeah. No, and I like it. Uh, one of our members, and I can share this. I won't share the person's name, but one of our members recently had a stroke, and I got an email saying a Facebook notice, or an email, I don't know, saying that she just had a stroke. My initial response was, "Oh my God, no, no!" And without even thinking about it, my initial response was one of fear, and it was one of fear. I hope she's going to be okay. Oh my God, this is going to be terrible. And I had a stroke in 2014, so I know what that's
You
like.
know what the fear is.
Yeah, and then what I had to do is immediately say, let me see if I can move into a place of love and gratefulness. She's alive. She's alive, and she can get better. And not only can she get better, I know that because I got better. And I began to see her functioning, doing well, dancing, moving, working, sculpting, doing all of the things that she loves to do. I saw those things to set myself in the position of being able to do healing work. I can't do healing work for somebody when I'm in the middle of fear, thinking the worst could possibly happen. I'm actually in a battle with myself for a positive outcome against a fearful energy that's operating within me that says not necessarily. And if we're not careful, we cancel it. So we have to position ourselves, if we can, emotionally, as gratitude. I thought the first thing I thought of when I talked to her, turn down the volume on that. There you go.
Just want to mute
Yeah.
everybody that may be coming in.
Yeah, but that's just that dinghy goes away once we turn the volume down. So, but I had to literally take a step back and position myself to be in a place of love, not to be in a place of fear. And it's so easy to be in that fear, and then even to do prayer out of fear, and all that is powerful fearfulness. And so, whatever you can do to stop that energy for a moment and say, what is it I love? What am I grateful for, as you were saying? And that's a wonderful place to start. Go ahead.
I just want to say that it's a key part of the major religions to feel gratitude. So I want to share some things with you. Gratitude is the foundation of Judaism. The creativity, the heartfulness, courage, joy, forgiveness are all anchored by gratitude. in their tradition. And in Christianity, Apostle Paul said, rejoice always, give thanks in all things. And in New Thought, Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, there is something in thanksgiving that carries us beyond the field of doubt into one of faith and acceptance. Gratitude is the power which attracts and magnifies the potential of life. That's what I was saying, that it attracts and magnetizes the good potential in life. So
look at this potential.
Mm-hmm.
Potential is infinite possibility. Something bad has happened, and what you're saying is it's an event. Infinite possibility for good exists, as opposed to something bad has happened. Let me spend some time on that bad. Let me focus on that bad. Let me see if I can understand that bad. Why aren't good things happening? And so it doesn't mean that you just throw it away. It means you don't give your energy to it, and you don't give your heart and soul and consciousness to it. You recognize it and say, now what can I do?
Another practice in gratitude is it's recommended that you practice daily giving thanks for one crummy thing in your life.
And it's so hard to find one.
No, it's never hard to find one. And the reason that you do that is when you give thanks for something crummy, what you're doing is saying, there's going to be some good in here somewhere. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it has for so many times for us that when we think something terrible has happened, it turns out to be something wonderful in ways we never could have predicted. So just based on your past, and I bet it's the same is true for you, if you think about when you say, oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen, and it turns out that the best thing that could ever happen comes out of that.
I got on the scale yesterday, and that was the worst thing that could ever happen. I thought, 4 pounds.
Yeah.
And then I went outside, and it was really pretty breezy, and I thought, I won't blow away. That's 4 pounds. Where did that come from? I don't think you can get fat on chocolate.
Well, our stories are a little too long to share, but we've definitely had some wonderful things come out of
and very briefly, I quit my job. We left the state, went to another state because
this is when we first got married.
Right. And it was a great job opportunity there, wonderful job opportunity. I was going to be the head of a brand new addiction program. I was going to be the program director. I was excited. And they said, we're going to pay you in stock. I said, what? When I got there, after we'd moved.
After we moved across the country.
And I want the details now. If I'd been smarter, I'd have gotten the details earlier, but I didn't. So I had no job, and I had nothing. And we're living in the basement of a relative, and it's cold and it's winter, and that relative snores through the wall. And I'm thinking, could it get any worse than this? And then the place that I had quit called me and said, would you be interested in coming back as a program director? I said, oh my God, let me think about it. I didn't want to be too eager.
And that was a big promotion, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So I said, and then I said, only if you'll pay me more money and pay my moving expenses. They did. If we moved back. And what they told me when I got back is, we never hire a program director from within. We always hire a program director from without. And although you had worked for us, you had left.
Oh, wow.
And so because we don't want people that are in positions to think that they could, compete with a program director and try to get their job and things like this. And we also like fresh blood. You've been out now for 4 months, which meant we've been hungry for 4 months and cold in the winter for 4 months and dealt with the allergies of Idaho.
Wow, you haven't said the rest of what your demand was.
Oh, and my wife will have to be my lead counselor, and she's going to have to get paid a decent salary too. So we both got the job, got jobs.
We got promotions.
Promotions. She had been a part-time counselor. Now she was going to be a full-time counselor. And I was going to be a program director. I think we made more money doing that than we'd ever made before.
And who could have guessed it? We just could not have. We could not have planned something like that and created it ourselves. So we've had enough of those things happen that we try to stay away from labeling anything as awful, because you never know what good can come out of it.
Yes. And
so practice. And yesterday in our Saturday meeting, we had a woman share that something appears to be an, oh my God, ain't it awful situation right now. And she and somebody else involved did this thing where they said, let's imagine some wonderful outcome because of this. So they were spending their energy, instead of worrying about something, saying what wonderful outcome could come of this. And so they were imagining possible positive outcomes. I just thought that was brilliant and a great
Mhm.
testimony to the practice of this teaching.
Also, something else that's really interesting in that, that person was there because the consciousness of us and her and the group continues to manifest in ways that bring more good. And so what I see is, I learned a long time ago that it's called self-selecting. Groups are self-selecting, and that they select out people that don't fit and select in people that do. When you're operating in the consciousness that is right for you, it is just going to happen that you're going to be with other people that are going to have the same
Mhm,
consciousness. And
mhm,
the power
mhm.
of that is that it's harder when things to go bad for you to feel as bad as you would were you alone or with people who said, yeah, bad things always happen.
Yeah, like attracts like, in
Exactly.
consciousness. And what we used to hear when we were children, or I did, was water seeks its own level. And that was used to describe what happens with the friends you as a child or your children had. They tend to attract children who are of the same consciousness
Yeah.
that they are. In other words, if they're troublemakers, they probably have friends who are troublemakers.
Because I had trouble at school. I had trouble at school because I was dyslexic and didn't know it. And the teacher just said I was dumb and lazy. And so when I would go to a new school, which was like 9 schools in 8 years, I would always not only be the new kid, I would be the dumb kid. Guess where I sat? I didn't sit in the front where the smart kids sat. I sat in the back row of the dumb kids. The dumbest of the dumb were in the very back, causing trouble. So when it came test time, guess who I copied? I would look over and say, that kid, he said it's D, and I thought it was E. I'll go with D. And so I did worse hanging out with the wrong people, of course, which is what happens to us. I stopped sitting in the back row once I went to college.
I want to tell you a true story about someone I would not have expected this from, but maybe I would have expected it from. I just think it's brilliant. Stephen Colbert
Oh,
is a good Catholic. And when he was 10 years old, I think he had a number of brothers. I'm not sure how many, but his father and two of his brothers were killed in a plane crash, a small private plane. His father was flying, I think. And of course, that's a huge loss for a 10-year-old boy. And he was saying that he had to learn to love the thing that he most wished hadn't happened.
mm.
Had to learn to love the worst thing that had happened. Because he says, if we're going to be grateful for our life, we have to be grateful for all of it. We can't pick and choose. And that is what fits the quote I gave you before from Paul, saying, rejoice always and give thanks in all things. You can't just give thanks for the good and say, I wish the bad hadn't happened, you know.
I remember growing up, because we were poor, we lived in lots of different places that knew a lot about poor and that had lots of poorness about them. One of the places we lived was in the country, and in a shack that my father was remodeling to make it into a house, which meant we had an outhouse. And I was responsible for the outhouse. That is, I had to clean it. And in the middle of winter, when you have to go and you have to walk, a good 65 feet in the blowing snow and wind to the outhouse, it is not pleasant. Fast forward, another 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere bivouacking with the military as part of our assignment, and all of the
What is
soldiers
bivouacking?
bivouacking, camping out with a small tent, and
Okay.
it's snowing. And this is in New Jersey in the wintertime during basic training. So we all have our tents set up. And you would not believe the amount of complaining and upset and difficulty. And I thought, I've just come home because the house we lived in, that's back in my dreams. The house we lived in was a shack that was covered with tar paper. And when the wind would blow, it would blow right through until we were able to afford to put shingles on it. And you would go outside in the snow. So it was winter inside and outside.
Mhm.
And I thought, I can do this. And what amazed me was how miserable everybody was and how miserable I wasn't. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was like, this is no big deal. So a lot of the struggles we have become future triumphs if we think about it. They become places for triumphs to occur. And I think we often indulge ourselves in painful reactions to things that are painful when we could, in fact, do exactly what you said. And I think I may have shared this before, but it's appropriate right now. The founder of logotherapy, German Jewish man in a concentration camp,
Viktor
Viktor
Frankl.
Frankl. I'm not going to share the whole story, but Viktor Frankl every morning had to get up and walk barefoot to his assignment, his work assignment, which is
when he was in a prisoner camp.
Yeah, and the only reason that they kept him alive was because as long as he could work, he could live. And so he was on his way walking to his labor camp job, and he imagined sitting in a beautiful big room with a huge desk and all of the residents, psychiatric residents, sitting around, fourth year residents he was teaching. Every day on his way to his labor camp job, he imagined a new lesson that he was teaching them, something new that he was showing them, something he was explaining. Here's what's interesting. This man was able to do this every day for as long as he was there and never got frostbite. So when we change our mental state, we change our physical state. When we change our physical state, we have the infinite possibility. We have infinite possibility for good. The other piece of that, which is just an aside, but it's about gratitude. The people in the concentration camp that had food, not much and not enough, they were starving, that shared their food with other people often lived longer than the people they shared it with. Because the people that they shared it with were so desperately clinging to not enough. And the people that shared it were grateful for what they had and felt that they had enough to share, enough to spare. And they outlived in every area the people that were hungry and stayed hungry even when they were fed.
So it's about time for us to close. So I'm going to close with two very interesting quotes. They're really, really quite profound. Matthew Fox is a former Catholic priest who, I can't remember what he calls this teaching, but it's very similar to ours. And he's just a beautiful, intelligent, thoughtful man. And he says that the only adult prayer is thank you. The only adult prayer.
I love it. It's powerful.
And Meister Eckhart was a Catholic priest in the 1200s in
a lot of
Europe,
Catholics back then.
In Germany. Meister Eckhart, which meant he was a master. He was a professor too. And what he said, if the only prayer you ever manage to say is thank you, that will suffice. That will suffice.
It's a Catholic thing.
No, it's not a Catholic thing. But for a long time, they were the only were the only Christian leaders.
They were certainly the early Christians.
In the 1200s.
The earliest Christians, yes.
1200.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to, well, actually what we need to do
I have to tell a funny story before we
Sure,
close.
We got time.
In my first marriage.
You were married before?
Yes. I actually married an atheist, but his mother was very Christian. And she was telling me long after we married that she had been disappointed when we married because he hadn't married a Christian. And I said, I was Catholic when we got married. I said, well, honey, Catholics are Christians. And she said, what?
Really?
Indeed, they were the only Christians for about 1600 years of the first of Christianity. So she just thought, no, Catholics are Catholics and Christians are Christians. So,
how to make your world smaller when it could be bigger. practicing inclusion. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to share the screen for just a couple of minutes here. And share screen, and we're going to go here. And we want to talk just for a minute about supporting our ministry. If you can, if it fits for you, you can economically manage it, and you would like to support us in this ministry, and the people that we help that you don't see and don't know that we help because of you, then please consider investing in this center. And the way you do that is,
you go to our website, which is right here. Oh, it's not showing, is it? It's cslpalmbeaches.org. And oh yeah, here it is, cslpalmbeaches.org. And when you do that, you can click this ways to donate button, and it will show you how you can pay by various means there. So
Absolutely.
we thank you very much.
And so we're going
Your support.
well, I'd like you to say with me so that we affirm, and what we affirm, we realize. My investment today is made with a full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied.
And so it is.
Beautiful. And now we're going to end. And thank you all for participating.